With me right now are co-host Paula Callanan. She's going to actually talk about herself, and she's been a fabulous asset to the Shattering Barriers crew and Lowell Disability Commission in the past, and she's a great community advocate for people with disabilities, making sure that there's awareness and just everything. She's a champion for people with disabilities. Paula, how are you doing?
Great. How are you, Will?
I am fabulous. It's great to see you again, as always. And I'm trying to get maybe the audience to get to know you a little bit and who you are. Can we maybe talk about how you grew up and who?
Yep. I grew up in Tewksbury. I was not born with a disability. I acquired my disability at the age of 18 from an automobile accident. I think there's a lot of differences and similarities to being born with a disability and acquiring a disability later in life. When I was injured, I think the goal was for me to learn how to use the wheelchair. It really didn't concentrate much on ambulating and walking, where I think with someone born with a disability and has some mobility where they can ambulate.
Right, it's absolutely true because with me, being born with CP, it's always, get up on the walker and, try to use that walker as much as you can and move around, get to, just try to make yourself as strong as you possibly can. Whereas this is just a little bit different because of the circumstance.
Mm-hmm, kind of thrown into the disability community, thrown into the disability world. Difficulty identifying even having a disability, where are the services, it changes your whole life.
I mean, was there any, I don't want to use the word shame, but that's the only word that I can think of, like, how was it like just jarring?
I didn't perceive myself as having a disability and initially. I think for the first year and a half, it was coming to realize that and how my life was going to change.
Right, I think that's something that we definitely want to talk about, that whole idea of perception and what that means, because I don't know that the audience is, what's the perception of having a disability?
Right, that's another example would be an elder who over time loses independence because of an illness or aging. You kind of age into disability, and it's difficult to adapt to, and it's can be anxiety and depression for an elder, or dealing with losing that independence.
And I think in a lot of ways, that is one of the universal things that holds it together. Really, is that if you realize, a lot of people think of having a disability as being something that's traumatic. But I remember one of my colleagues, John Miller, actually said to me, the one of the universal things about it is that it can happen to somebody at any time in their life. You can become disabled, and bang, it's sitting there right in front of you, and you either, it's something that you either conquer and you live with, or you obviously, there are people that I know must struggle with it a great deal.
Yes, there are some people injured with a spinal cord injury who never get out of bed after they're injured.
Can you tell me maybe what that experience was for you growing up, because I know that you had a very unique family dynamic and family situation growing up where it kind of maybe pushed you a little bit. Can you maybe talk about that?
Yes, my mother passed away from alcoholism at 47. My father has struggled with alcohol, so I think that kind of I already had that. I had a sense of independence at a young age. I wasn't living at home at the time of my accident, so I really didn't have a lot of family support. Where someone born with a disability may have more support from family members.
Right, that is for me. That's something that is totally different. Whereas I kind of had that support network, and you kind of, not that you obviously you might have. You found strength not only in yourself, but I'm sure somewhere along the line. I know for myself, I was able to find different, maybe male role models, or not that my father wasn't there, but my mom predominantly raised two boys on her own, and I was able to. Like I said, I was never held back from doing anything I wanted to do. There might have been a little fear because, is Will going to be able to, get around campuses and just, do everything that a person needs to do to survive, to be independent. I mean, there are people who don't necessarily have disabilities. Like you said, people who have alcoholism and other dependency issues. That, to me, in a lot of ways, is a situation that can actually be more crippling. Because here you are, you're perfectly fine and well, but you're not maybe doing as much as you can with your life. Whereas a person with a disability, a lot of times that becomes a motivational factor to improve your life. As you said, you maybe weren't comfortable in your family situation. You just wanted to get away, and in your disability in some ways made you a stronger person. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, I mean, I had support, guidance counselors and teachers in high school, and I was able to reach out to them. But shortly thereafter, I was involved in an automobile accident. I was a passenger, not wearing my seatbelt, and hit by another car on the freeway, 93. That was a long time ago. And you learn to adapt, and how are you going to make your mark on the world?
Right. Did your perception about life at all change? I mean, I'm sure you had obviously had some struggles with.
Well, I was introduced to the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission pretty early on, also Northeast Independent Living Program. I needed to keep the independence that I had before my accident.
Right.
I wasn't able to go back to a home, where you had supportive parents, and so I went out to the community and sought community supports, went back to school, went back to work, and went on doing what anybody does in life.
Was it 1983? That's when I know it was really just becoming aware. There was definitely a consciousness around the disability community because of the ADA and.
Well, the ADA wasn't passed until 9 or 10 years later, but you had the Rehab Act, you had 504. Unfortunately, the town hall in the town that I lived in was not accessible. There were many buildings in the town of Tewksbury that were not accessible. New construction, not accessible. There were building code violations. It just wasn't being enforced like it is today. The independent living movement, late 70s, early 80s, that definitely helped. Put me in contact with other people with disabilities, and where was I going to find the resources to live independently.
I mean, I look at you personally, and and I see, someone who, like I said from the beginning of the show, and I really mean this, you're a champion for people with disabilities. You kind of you have that passion to help them realize that your life isn't over. You can do it. Was there maybe a certain a point in your life where you said, I'm going to do everything that I can to make this work, to make.
I had my injury in 1983, and then unfortunately in 1989, I had two brothers that were in a construction accident. Scaffolding collapsed, and my older brother had sustained a severe brain injury, very severe. My younger brother sustained a spinal cord injury like myself. So it was pretty much a trio.
So yeah, I didn't want to be insensitive, but it seems like it became all in the family.
My brother was my older brother with the brain injury. He needed to become service connected. He needed, as myself, I was able to assist my brother and his family, both of my brothers. So it's things that happen kind of happen for maybe for a reason.
Right.
So I was definitely thrown into the disability community along with my brothers some years later, and you had to know where you needed to get services.
Right. Nobody. It wasn't like people were just going to call you up saying, "Oh, Paula, do this, do that." And,
No one calls you up or knocks on your door and tells you about the services that are out there in the community. You may be introduced to these resources and services, or you hear about them, but community members with disabilities really need to reach out and find out what resources are out there, and the Lowell Commission on Disability is one of them.
Absolutely, folks. So if you are thinking that you're struggling with some things because maybe you've just become injured, or there's something has happened to maybe a member of your family, just know that it's possible to overcome all kinds of different obstacles, and that's why we're here. So don't give up.
Never give up.